What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lenny, your favorite aspiring trachologist in the neighborhood. Lego. So I'm gonna do that until it sticks, until you guys know that I'm aspiring to be a trachologist. Alright, so deal with it. By the way, today is my birthday. It's the 25th of March. Well, you guys are gonna see this on a Friday, so for you to be yesterday. So anyway, it's my birthday today, and I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, for being here, for having been part of my dream come true. You guys make it possible by sharing and liking and commenting. I really appreciate that. So thank you for playing your role. Alright, so if you're new here, thank you for joining us. Series this is called Understanding Your Hair Structure series, or Ineffective Natural Hair Products. So we look at the hair structure, we look at the components of the hair structure, what their roles are when it comes to retaining moisture, when it comes to retaining length as well, right? Because what you feed your hair is what will determine how long your hair is gonna grow. That is besides genetics. All right, so we started with the hair structure. That was part one, and then part two we looked into porosity. Porosity is basically the ability of your hair to absorb and retain moisture and nourishment. Because porosity is a wide spectrum, the only logical way to approach it was to put it in ranges. Like you have your extreme ranges, which is low porosity and high porosity, and the balanced or medium porosity, which is called medium porosity. So we started with low porosity. If you want to learn about low porosity, in case you fall in the low porosity range, please make sure you do watch part one, part two, and then part three talks about products for low porosity. So today we're going to be focusing on high porosity, which is my favorite because I have high porosity hair. So I'm talking about what I know. I'm going to be giving you guys facts based off of, you know, what I experience and how I deal with my hair, right? If you're a fellow high porosity hair, please do comment down below and let us know how you deal with your hair. Let us know what made you realize that you had high porosity hair. So today we're going to be looking into the characteristics for high porosity hair, or signs that you can look at to guide you or to help you determine that you have high porosity hair. So remember that when it comes to porosity, you mainly focused on the cuticle layer. The cuticle layer is the outermost layer of your hair structure. All right, it acts both as a gateway and a doorway. It opens or relaxes to let in nourishment and moisture, and then it closes, it tightens to retain all of those things. So when it comes to high porosity hair, there are two things that can cause high porosity hair. Number one is genetics. You're born with it. Like in my case, I realized that I'm born with high porosity hair. And then there are people who can move from low porosity to high porosity hair through chemically processing their hair over a long period of time, using heat, you blow drying your hair without protecting it, you know, like prolonged, you know, manipulation. All of those things, they can deplete the cuticle layer. By the way, the strand has between 5 to 12 layers of the cuticles. All right, it's not just one, you have 5 to 12 of those. So when it comes to fine textured hair, which mostly is high porosity, they have few, I think maybe between 5 to 6, 7 maybe cuticle layers. So they are not a lot. The fourth one is that the cuticle layers, they might be thin, you know, from what I read. Okay, so if you have thin cuticle layers, that means that they're not strong enough to tighten, so they easily lift up. That means that it will be highly porous, because when it's open, it's porous, right? So we're gonna look at the characteristic. Characteristic number one is that your hair dries out quickly. Sometimes after I wash my hair, the minute I step out of the shower, my hair starts drying. Within like 30 minutes, right? By the time I try to put on leave-in conditioner, it's already dry. I have to re-spritz water, but that can be dangerous to your hair. So yes, it dries quickly. Remember we said that the cuticle layer acts as a doorway and a defensive shield. So it can open up to let in enough moisture, and then it will close up, right? When it comes to high porosity hair, because of the lifted cuticle or the missing cuticle, sometimes you can find that there are missing cuticle shingles within the cuticle layer. Because of those missing, it means that the cuticle layer is not able to perform its duties properly. So the moisture that got absorbed by the hair can easily evaporate. The protective shield is not intact. I hope that makes sense. So that can be detrimental to the health of the hair. So what is the solution? Because you don't want your hair to dry quickly, otherwise you're going to have to be spritzing water, and that can cause high growth fatigue. So what do I do to prevent my hair from going through the high growth fatigue or from being damaged from the lift and close? What I usually do is, number one, especially during wash days, when I wash my hair, after I wash with the shampoo, when I put the deep conditioner, I have to make sure that I have a deep conditioner that have protein in them, because protein does strengthen and it repairs the cuticle layer. It can also close those gaps where you have missing shingles, but we'll talk more about protein and how it affects your hair when you talk about products, which will be our last and fifth part of the series. So make sure you hit the notification bell, you stay subscribed, and you stay following so that you don't miss out on that. All right, so that's you can use protein treatment, or you can, after you wash your hair, you put in your deep conditioner, you plait your hair into twist out or braid out, whatever it is, right? So that when you rinse your hair, you rinse in that style, right? And then when it dries in that style. It sort of like delays the drying process. The moisture will not escape right away. It's gonna take a bit of time. So that helps your hair to not go through high growth fatigue. I hope that's clear. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has experienced this or who has high porosity hair. So please do comment how you deal with your hair. How do you prevent your hair from drying quickly after you wet it? What are some of the techniques that you use? I'd really love to hear from you so that I can learn a thing or two from you guys as well. Right, so the second characteristic is that high porosity hair forms complicated tangles easily. Guys, when I transitioned from to natural hair, I struggled because I thought there was something wrong with my hair, because my hair would tangle. When I say complicated tangles, I mean something like this, which would literally make you want to shave your hair off. Remember, we said that high porosity hair has cuticle layers, or the cuticles are lifted, or they are missing, or they are chipped. Yeah, some of them are chipped, creates a rough surface, right? And then what happens is that instead of your hair strands gliding smoothly against one another, they lurch onto each other because of that uneven surface. So that causes tangles. So if your hair tangles a lot and it's thin, you probably have high porosity hair. So what are the solutions? Stretching your hair should be your number one priority if you want to retain length. Even if you don't want to retain length, if you want to have healthy hair, you have to make sure that your hair doesn't tangle, because when it tangles, it can create splits, right? It becomes a mess, and then you have to trim that off so you can have uneven hair. So what I do is I keep my hair stretched at all times. You guys know that I love the African threading. I do bantu knots. I never leave my hair just floating and being wild, because that's just will go wild. So make sure that you keep your hair stretched at all times. It helps the strands to stay straightened, and it can also help to make sure that your cuticle layer doesn't get further damaged. The third characteristic is that high porosity hair breaks easily when tension is applied, when it's wet or when it's dry, because it's fragile. Remember that we said that it can have missing cuticles, it can have chipped cuticles, it can have thinner cuticles. So that means that it's fragile, so you need to handle with care. What happens is that they easily break because the outer layer, the cuticle layer, is not strong. So whatever manipulation you do to your hair is going to break. So what are some of the solutions that you can use to prevent your hair from breaking? Because I know most of us, we want to retain length. Like, I've been trying for I don't know how many years to get my hair past the shoulder length, but because I manipulate it and it breaks, it's just a whole mess. But I'm trying, I'm learning. I have a goal that by December I should have passed the shoulder length. So say a prayer for me. So the solution is that always use a light hand when you're handling your hair. When you're plaiting your hair, make sure you are gentle with your hair. And the number one thing that works for me before I manipulate my hair, I pre-poo. Pre-poo should be your friend. Pre-pooing does wonders for high porosity hair. First of all, it helps your hair to not go through high growth fatigue. When the oils get in there, they're going to soften your hair, they're going to condition your hair, so that makes your hair easy to manage. When you pre-poo your hair, after you pre-poo your hair, it becomes pliable, so you can detangle. You can finger detangle. Always make sure that you use your fingers before you get your comb or your whatever you call it to detangle, right? Use your fingers pre-poo before your wash day. It does work wonders for your hair. It will make your hair pliable. It will make your hair easy to handle. Then the other thing is that work in sections. Always work in sections. I can't detangle my hair in this state, right? I always have to section it, usually enforce it depending on how much hair you have, because some people don't have a lot of hair, some people have a lot of hair. Just make sure that you section it in manageable sections so that you can go section by section. When it comes to natural hair, guys, you have to employ the highest level of patience, because otherwise you're not gonna succeed. It's just like everything else in life, your skin, your job, your business, you have to be patient. So make sure that you're patient with your hair, make sure that you're patient with yourself, and make sure that you love your hair, because you cannot handle right what you don't appreciate and what you don't love. All right, so that's what I do. I work in sections and make sure that there's product every time before you handle your hair. After you wash your hair, if it dries out, make sure that you spritz, your leave-in conditioner, so that the ingredients in the leave-in conditioner can condition your hair. They can make your hair pliable. Never handle your hair when it's dry, regardless of the hair porosity, guys, because that is the #1 cause for hair breakage. All right, okay, because I've been seeing you guys just going in there with the comb, and I was like, oh my god, I literally cringe. So don't hurt my feelings. The last and final characteristic is that product penetrates easily. This is like the one advantage that I personally love, right? I love it because when I apply product, it doesn't take long for my hair to absorb it. I don't have to rub it in. I don't have to use heat. So don't use heat, or use heat judiciously if you have high porosity hair. But I would say don't use heat at all, because your cuticle layer is already lifted, or is already thin, or it's already missing some cuticles in there. So stay away from heat for as much as you can. Using a cap for 30 minutes if you deep condition is more than enough. We'll talk about it when you talk about the products, but when you condition your hair, 30 minutes is enough. More than that is just hurting your hair. And air dry your hair. I would say air dry is the option 1. The second one, you can use blow dryer. Just make sure that you're using it on a cold setting, right? Because heat damages your hair. It burns the cuticle layer. So if you already have chipped and missing and open cuticles, that's just like easy to damage. Since we talked about can you go from low porosity to high porosity, then the other question is, can you go from high to low? Well, if you used to have low porosity hair and then you went to high porosity, can you now return back to low porosity? I would say no, unless if you shave off the hair or you trim off the highly porous parts. This is why we always say your ends will always be highly porous. So if you trim them off, or you trim your whole hair off, the hair that's going to grow out is going to be low porosity if genetically you have low porosity. But if you keep the strands, let's say you bleached your hair when it's this long, can this same hair go back to low porosity? No. The best that it can do, it can go to medium porosity. We'll talk about medium porosity in a minute, right? It'll go to medium porosity, but that's like a temporary fix. What are the things that you can do to at least move from completely depleting the cuticle layer to medium porosity, which is like a balanced porosity? Number 1, I'll say protein treatments should be your best friend. If you have a high porosity hair, you should always have protein mask or strengthening mask. Just make sure that you have products that have protein. We'll talk about products and which proteins to look at on our next video, next week, Fridays. I'll also be going into why rice water is not working for low porosity hair. And the other thing is that you should use acidic sprays or acidic rinses, which is your apple cider vinegar rinses. Apple cider vinegar is acidic, right? Remember we said that our hair is slightly acidic. It has a pH of 4.5 to 5.5. Apple cider vinegar is acidic, but when you add it, you dilute it in water, it becomes less acidic. So when you rinse it with your water, it makes the cuticle layer to lie flat. So after you deep condition with your protein to strengthen the structure of your hair, you rinse with apple cider vinegar to help the cuticle to lie flat. So that can help you retain moisture. And when you retain moisture and retain nourishment, you can also retain your length. So that's how you can move from high to medium. So you have to constantly do that regimen. You have to have a constant regimen that you follow so that you stay in the medium part. Okay, so another thing is that you have to seal with butters and oils. Here's the thing, when you have high porosity hair, it's possible that you have thinner strands or you have thicker strands. Those that have thinner strands, make sure that you get oils like avocado oils, you have your olive oils. We'll go deeper into that in the next episode. And if you have thicker, highly porous hair, your friend should be butters. Layering in general, it should be your best friend. If you have high porosity hair, you should do the LOC to the T. You have your liquid, which should be your leave-in conditioner, you have your cream, and then you have your oil or your butter, because it does also work as a, it does, or we call it oils, you know what I mean. It seals, just sealing helps the moisture to slowly escape from your hair. Guys, I've been talking, so we're gonna do our woosa because my throat hurts. I need to breathe, and I need to remind you, while we breathe, please do me a favor, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Our upcoming episode, which will be part 5 of 5, is going to be a banger. I'm gonna make a biggest announcement I've ever made in this channel, so you don't want to miss on that. I'm gonna touch a little on medium porosity. Medium porosity people, they don't have a problem really. They have the best of both worlds. Medium porosity means that your hair is not highly porous, no cuticle layer tightly packed. You're sort of like balanced, you're in between. So the characteristics are, number 1, your hair retains moisture longer. It's able to absorb and hold product. And the other one is that it retains length with the least amount of work. You know those people who don't do anything to their hair, but then their hair just grows. Like they never do anything to their hair, and then they tell you, I don't do anything, so don't do anything to your hair. No sis, do something to your hair, because you might not have the same porosity as them. Because I've had people say they use light bar soap and it works wonders. I can't use that, my hair will dry. I have to use moisturizing shampoos. So this is why it's important to know your hair porosity. All hairs are not the same. It might be made the same, but it does not behave the same. Just like humans, you know, we flow blood, you know, vessels, but that don't mean we're all good. Okay, so there are certain things that you need to do to make sure you keep your hair. Yeah, that's it for today. So thank you for giving me a portion of your time. I really appreciate, and thank you for sharing. Thank you. We meet again next time. See you next week Friday. Bye. Yeah.